Very good evening to you. If you are just joining us, are you honest with yourself about how much you drink? Like many of us, do you live in a bit of denial? Tell yourself, and maybe the doctor, little white lies about the number of units you drink. We're asking this because our colleague Adrian Charles has been speaking about his relationship with alcohol. He says he was horrified to find that he was sometimes drinking as much as 100 units a week.
Yeah, in a BBC Two documentary called Drinkers Like Me, he talks about being a social drinker, but how the line with dependency can become blurred and that many of us find it almost impossible to enjoy life without alcohol. On 5 Live earlier today, Anna Foster asked Adrian if it was tough to see headlines about him saying, I drink 100 units a week.
Well, I kind of knew it because I said it, and I sort of confronted this on the first day I was making the programme. Look, do you get anything commissioned on television now? Actually, it seems to me as a documentary, you've got to have some personal involvement. Now, yeah. I've got a real personal interest in alcohol. I just think it's interesting, just because, I don't drink sherry in the morning, or one doesn't drink sherry in the morning and isn't up half the night and, sleeping on a park bench, doesn't mean you haven't got some form of alcohol dependency. But in the build-up to making the programme, I thought, hang on, do I drink enough to really warrant making this programme?
And this is almost the issue,
Yeah, well, and then the scales then sort of fell from my eyes. Just when, on the first day of filming, I started counting what I was actually drinking. Now, I'm not really a binge drinker, although it kind of looks it in the programme, because the actual mundanity of how I drink is too boring to film. On a basic level, I'll meet my mate, the same mate in West London. I'll have 2 pints of Guinness, right? And that'll be that. Then I'll go home. Won't drink at home. I might go on to drink something else on the odd night,
so
maybe more than one night.
You on a massive bender with a feather boa on in a nightclub at 3 in the morning?
No, absolutely, very, very rarely. So look, 2 pints of Guinness a day, right? If you take that as a minimum, right, that in itself is more than 30 units of alcohol a week. Now, the recommended maximum is 14 units. So I don't even class 2 pints of Guinness as a drinking night. A guy I used to work with used to say to me, non-drinking night last night? And I went, yeah, non-drinking night, meaning...
Meaning not a big night?
No, I had 2 pints of Guinness and maybe a glass of wine, right? Then you add in, on top of that 30 units, which is roughly what we've got as a starting point, you add in, one day at the football, a few pints beforehand, maybe nothing in the afternoon, go out in the evening and have a normal night, perhaps half a bottle of wine, a couple of pints, something... and maybe one other night of the week, one liquid lunch. Then you're up to 100 units very quickly.
And that sounds a lot.
Yeah, but without getting drunk. And I would just urge anybody to actually count how much you're drinking.
The candour of Adrian Charles speaking to Anna Foster earlier, 85058 at BBC 5 Live. Drinkers Like Me is going to be on BBC Two at 9 o'clock on Monday night. But let's talk about some of the issues surrounding this now. Do you drink a similar amount to Adrian? Do you drink half of it, which would still be well above the recommended guidelines? Have you changed your alcohol intake? Do you need some help getting some tips on how to slow things down a bit? If your social life is tied up with drinking, as for so many people it is. There was a pensioner who texted us a while ago saying, that is my social life. If I didn't go to the pub to meet my friends, that would be it. Can you enjoy a night out without alcohol? Or are you one of the many people who've been in touch with us today who's saying, actually, it's worse if you don't drink. You are criticised and get a lot more funny looks if you don't drink. Maybe just enjoy it. You don't see it as a problem. Let us, before we answer all of those questions, go to Trent Bridge. Nikesh.
Yes, that partnership that I was talking about of 50 between Adil Rashid and Stuart Broad has come to an end. Stuart Broad hauling out to Jasprit Bumrah, who takes his second 5-wicket haul in Test cricket. A wonderful bowling performance it's been by him. 4 wickets with the new ball this evening. Another catch for KL Rahul in the slip cordon. So Broad gone for 20. Just 1 wicket now required for India to win this Test match and make it 2-1 going into Southampton. Adil Rashid is still there on 22. Jimmy Anderson just making his way out to join him. This one could be over very quickly indeed. England 291 for 9.
Nikesh, thank you. Well, let's speak to our guests now. We've got Ned Lamb with us from London. He gave up alcohol for a year and now drinks moderately. Dr. Claire Garnett is one of a team behind an app called Drink Less, which is designed to help people cut down on how much they drink. Adrian says that one really helped him. Also, Laura Willoughby, who set up Club Soda to offer support and organise social events to anyone who wants to give up or cut back on the booze. And Ben Butler from Drink Aware. Evening to all of you.
Evening.
Hi. Ned, let's start with you because you gave up alcohol for a year. Why?
I just got to a point where I think I was drinking a little bit too much for what I was comfortable with.
What's a little bit too much for what you're comfortable
So I
with?
drank several nights a week, not in huge amounts, but I think several nights a week, definitely on a Friday, almost certainly on a Saturday, and then definitely after football on a Sunday. And the amount I'd drink each week would vary, but I just got to a point where I think I knew something needed to change in my head. I didn't quite like the sort of mundanity of it all. As Adrian Charles said, it's quite boring, but I think, I just got to a point where I was drinking a little bit too much. I wasn't comfortable with it. There'd been some prompts in my my dad had said I looked a bit overweight. My brother had started going teetotal, and I'd read a Vice article in the year before, which had just sort of, I suppose, inspired me a little bit. And then I just decided to make a change, really, and that was on New Year's Day 2017.
Oh, you're one of those people that did the brave thing and gave up on New Year's Day, the most miserable time of the year.
Yeah, it was.
So how has it affected you, giving up? What was the immediate kind of feeling like over the first few weeks?
I think the first month or so was pretty simple. I think everyone's doing dry January. I think after month one, that's when you start to clock watch a little bit, and I think you realise that you really are on your own, and everyone returns back to normal life, drinking in the week, drinking at the weekends, and you just realise it sort of confirmed my suspicions around how much people's different the parts of their lives revolved around alcohol, and that was one of the sort of central feelings I had when I decided to make a change, was that just too many elements of my life were kind of ended up being revolved around alcohol, and I just I suppose I had a bit of frustration. I think I started to learn who my friends were, and it was confirmed to me, who my friends were and who I'd spend time with, irrespective of whether it was at the pub or not.
So what did you do instead, if it was to sort of take up quite a large part of your life? And what did you and the friends that have made it through this with you, what did you do together?
So to some extent, I carried on doing the same things. I still played football at the weekend. In the week, I'd probably just bow out of the odd pub session. I wouldn't stay at the pub.
Did they give you a hard time for not drinking?
Yeah, I got loads of stick. All my mates gave me loads of stick. I got a lot of stick, particularly when I organised a football tour to Amsterdam in May. So I took 20 lads on a football trip to Amsterdam, and that, you can imagine the pressure, the sort of social pressure that might have brought to drink, to have fun. And I stayed sort of true to my word and stuck with it. So
there's two kind of things in that for me. There's one thing that is, friends don't like to see, even if they are your friends, they're probably a bit jealous of your resolve and the fact that they know that you were probably doing something that was right. Friends don't like change either in the group dynamic, do they? And I'm wondering if, as well, there is something about it being a very male group of mates that you had, and that there's something associated with drinking and masculinity.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true. Although I've got a lot of female friends who do good work in the pub.
For sure, but stopping drinking, I think women might be a little bit more accepting of other women.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think that is true, and I have quite a balanced group of friends. I have the football group, who are very dear to me, but they. They work in the week like I do. They hit the pub on Thursday and Friday, and it's very fun. But I think I just got to a point where the sort of when everything ends up in resulting in alcohol of some form, I just thought there must be more to life than this.
Why, Ned, did you go for the nuclear option and just give it up completely for a year? Because you're now drinking again. I know you do drinking moderately. So why not just manipulate your week, your drinking week a little bit?
Yeah, it definitely was the nuclear option. I think I'm fairly. It was a fairly bold move. I definitely. I think most of my mates said, "No way you're going to do that. No way you're going to do that," and lots of them tested that. But I think I just got to a point where I wanted to challenge myself. I sort of wanted to see if there was an alternative way of living, and I definitely find that way of living. And I got to know London better. I got to know my friends in different ways. Not just London through bars and pubs.
You'll feel. I would imagine you'd feel sharper in the morning. That kind of stuff.
All of those benefits. Yeah, definitely.
By the way, anyone's got a license just to jump in whenever they want in this discussion. But Claire,
I was going to say,
who's
go
that?
on, go for it.
It's Laura. I was
Hello,
going to say,
Laura.
it's not a year isn't actually a nuclear option as much as a really sensible length of time, because actually alcohol affects the way our brain works, and we automatically go to alcohol when there's any stressful situation or a situation where we want to be happier or a celebration. A year gives you a clear time to learn where all those triggers are, but also allows you to get some really fundamental firsts out the way. Your first sober birthday, your first sober Christmas, your first sober Easter, your first sober wedding. And I can tell you, once you've done all of those, you feel like you've got superpowers. And that gives you then the ability to pick, if you're going to moderate afterwards, the more ability to pick and choose when and where and who and what. And because you've done that based on a whole year of learning and never shying away from a situation just because you think you can't possibly drink, therefore today I'll moderate.
That very well articulates my feeling at the moment.
Yeah, I guarantee everybody listening to this will be reassessing how much they drink right now. We're all doing it. I'm doing it. I'm sure Sarah's doing it. I'm sure everybody at home listening as well. Laura, what was your wake-up call then that you had to change things?
Well, I was really boring myself, quite frankly. I'd ended up in a job where I wasn't very happy. It wasn't fulfilling me. And there's actually some parallels with Adrian not being sure about where his career was going as well. And I realised that it was really easy for me to drink more and more and more to deal with that rather than the fundamental issue. And I was beginning to really feel that I'd been there and done that. And so I initially gave up for an unspecified period of time, but I knew something had to change. But slowly over time, what's happened for me is I realised that alcohol's got nothing for me anymore. There's nothing it's got to offer me. There are so many other things instead that I enjoy that I don't now want to risk if I was going to drink again. But in Club Soda, we've got a whole range of goals from people taking some time off to going alcohol free. And really, this has to be your journey, your experiment with yourself and your learning about yourself in order to decide where's a comfortable place for you.
Claire Garnett, your app, Adrian cited it, hasn't he? Drink Less. He says that helped him. I guess Laura's not a candidate for you because that'd be drink nothing, but Ned might be. So how does it work? What would I find if I went on there today? What does it do?
So the Drink Less app is in principle doing just that, trying to help people drink a bit less. A group of researchers, including myself at University College London, developed it. It draws on scientific evidence and theories. And when you go into the app, you can record your drinking, so it will track how much and calculate for you how much you drink each week. You can set goals and then receive feedback on your progress relative to those goals. And also things like seeing how your drinking actually compares with the rest of the population in England, because that's something that a lot of people underestimate.
Yeah, I start from the point everyone's lying. I mean, that's the issue there, isn't it? Everyone's got to admit what they're drinking, so they all knock it down a bit. Do you give rewards if people cut down, Claire? How do you judge it? Do you set the limits? Do they set their own limits?
They set their own limits. So the whole point of the app is trying to help people moderate. And as people have already discussed on this, moderation is very difficult, but any reduction in your drinking is beneficial, as the risk from alcohol is relative to the number of units you drink. So if cutting down to below 14 units a week seems impossible, cutting down from 30 to 25 is still beneficial. And in terms of the app itself, when you get into Drink Less, you can set your own goals. And there's the full options that we've set based on the guidelines, so 14 units. But if that seems like too much of a challenge, then you can edit that to what seems an appropriate goal for you. And then if you're reaching all of those goals really easily, you'll get some feedback saying you're doing really, really well. How about, why don't you make this goal a little bit more challenging, as you've been achieving it so easily so far.
I just wanted to read a couple of texts and tweets that are coming in. A tweet from somebody called Wonky Donkey, who works in addiction services, says, all this alcohol chat, I'm looking at you, 5 Live, about Adrian Charles stuff in the news is so massively, massively unhelpful and misleading. It's ridiculous. It's uninformed. It's just going to make people judge more, make them look down their nose at people who don't have a problem, but just live in a society which involves alcohol, arguably less than France's. Ben?
Well, I mean, I think that you're right in saying that this is making everyone think about their drinking today. On the Drinkaware website today, we saw a threefold increase in the number of people arriving at the site looking for information and advice and to help to cut back.
I was one of them.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's important to recognise that yes, this isn't everybody, but a fifth of women and a third of men aged 45 to 64 are drinking above the low risk drinking guidelines of 14 units a week, unaware that perhaps they may be storing up health problems for the future. I mean, clearly in Adrian's case, I mean, he's talking about 100 units per week, which is the equivalent of which is the equivalent of drinking those 14 units that you're meant to spread across a week in a single day.
Those figures have gone down considerably fairly recently, though, haven't they? I mean, where is, I wonder, the absolute definitive medical evidence to say that 30 units a week actually that 14 units a week is going to give you liver disease and lead to complications in later life? Is it out there?
I mean, it's published. The low risk guidelines are based on the Chief Medical Officer's best available evidence, and as it was mentioned earlier, these are guidelines. This is, the more you can reduce your drinking in line with those 14 units, the more you can reduce your risk. But I think it's important that the main thing that came out from me about Adrian's honest discussion about alcohol was actually it's the mundanity of it. It's the fact that you don't necessarily realise how those drinks are clocking up through the week and potentially what the short and long term impact of that drinking might be causing. You mentioned Nedlund mentioned earlier about he felt sharper. I mean, a lot of people think that alcohol helps them sleep when actually it significantly reduces the quality of sleep.
Ben, I should just say that one of the primary benefits was just improved mental well-being.
Absolutely.
And I think that comes from a number of things. I remember speaking to a GP who said, that the effects of smoking and alcohol are pretty linear. The more you do, the more it harms you, and vice versa. But he said that one of the main benefits of what I was doing was probably the fact that I'd just made a clear decision to do something, and I was controlling how I wanted to live my life. And with not drinking and or having a more controlled lifestyle, I was spending much less money. All the pressures of living in London or that mount up through drinking more were much less acute. So I was in much better sort of state of mind, I think, overall. And all of those things combined actually just have a pretty overwhelmingly positive impact just by being a bit more moderated.
Do you think part of this unhealthy attitude to alcohol in this country stems from the fact that, by and large, people will look at it and think, well, it's not as bad as cigarettes, and it's not as bad as drugs, so if I'm going to have a vice, I'll stick with alcohol, and kind of Ben make a comparison in that sense?
Well, I think it's pretty...
Go on, Laura.
Go on, Laura.
Well, I think it's until you begin to reduce what you drink or think about days when you're not drinking when you're usually drunk, you don't begin to see how much our society is structured around alcohol. Very, very different to other types of drugs, so it becomes very difficult to avoid.
Well, it is legal, isn't it? That's the difference.
Yeah, and it's legal, and therefore it's quite hard for some people. It's just too hard to contemplate not doing it because actually the social pressure is huge. But it's also, I think, the Drinkaware stats show something more important than how many people are drinking above 14 units. I mean, nobody talks about units in Club Soda, and there's 20,000 people talking in our community about changing their drinking. What's more important is 1 in 5 people are already want to change their drinking habits. They just don't know where to begin. And that's where we need to have more conversations, and where the conversation with Adrian is important, because it doesn't say these are the units, here's where you need to stick. It says here are some really practical first steps, and that's what people do in Club Soda. They go, okay, I want to change something. Do I count units, or do I work out the number of alcohol-free days I'm going to do in a week? Am I going to challenge myself to do an alcohol-free night in the pub and see if that's possible, and will the sky fall in?
Yeah,
and then
I understand what you're saying, but the bottom line is to reduce your units, whether you're organising a social or otherwise.
I've sat in a
Drink
room
less,
with drug and alcohol. I've sat in a room of drug and alcohol professionals, and not one of them could tell me what a unit was. So, we know if we're drinking too much. And so actually, it's not about, am I drinking 14 units tonight? It might be about, right, if I start my evening with a number of alcohol-free drinks, I can assess the evening and decide whether I'm going to drink at all.
Well, we've got
for
we've got 2 minutes left. Just want to get some definitive advice from Ben here. Ben, if people are listening to this who drink, and they want to monitor their output, say we talk about the acceptable levels of alcohol, the units or whatever, is there any benefit to having 2 dry days in the middle of a week, or just mapping out your alcohol units equally over the 7 days? Which is the best way to go about it?
Well, I think the starting point, as Laura alluded to, was, and Adrian said today, don't panic, but be honest with yourself. Actually work out where you are right now in terms of your drinking, and there's lots of tools and apps that we've talked about today. The Drinkware website can help you understand how many units you are drinking, should you be interested in that. But of course, if you need to moderate, the more drink-free days you can have through a week, the better. It's a great way to cut back, and also think about those occasions that you drink and whether alcohol is really necessary. We know from our own research that many people drink in the home routinely without even thinking about why they're having that drink, and those are the drinks that over time build up and clock up and start storing up problems for the future.
Claire Garnett as well, Dr. Claire Garnett is with us, and the app is called Drink Less for the texter who wanted to know. Final word to you on this, Claire.
Yeah. Well, just quickly, 1 unit, 8 grams of pure alcohol. And in terms of the sort of setting goals based on units, whilst yes, I agree, it is about decreasing the amount of units that you drink each week. I think something that's important to remember is that you can set your goal based on what motivates you, whether that's the amount of money you're spending or potentially the amount of calories that you're getting from alcohol, which is something that often shocks people. And so it's about coming up with your own strategy and what would motivate you to reduce your drinking, because any reduction in your units per week is going to be beneficial to your health.
Can I ask all of you, have you ever had, apart from Ned obviously, but have you considered yourselves as having, and you too, Laura, Claire, what about you? Have you ever drunk too much, do you feel? Have you ever had to apply your own things to yourself?
Yes, I'm a regular user of the app.
Oh, yeah.
I did Dry January. Was very pleased to see all the green days on that.
Very good. Ben, what about you?
No, I've been at Drinkware for 10 years, so I'm pretty faithful to the message.
Good stuff. Thank you all very much. Ben Butler from Drinkware, Laura Willoughby, Dr. Claire Garnett and Ned Lamb.
That's it from us. Here's Kelly with 5 Live Sport.